Hello cruel world, my name is Dr. Shaham Das. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist. I assess mentally disordered offenders for a living so that you don't have to. Okay, so who is Tommy Robinson and why was he in the news recently? Is he a victim as he claims, or is he more of a liar pants on fire? What can we tell about his personality traits and what can we glean from looking at his historical behaviour? What are his skills in manipulating the media? Is Tommy Robinson a narcissist? Is he a pathological liar? Is he charismatic? Is he a psychopath? I'm going to answer all of those questions for you and many, many more in this episode for you, my Psych for Sore guys and gals. I am the ominous Shahominous, so grab your Union Jack and welcome to a Psych for Sore Minds. Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon is better known as Tommy Robinson. He was born on the 27th of November 1982, which means that he shares the same birthday as me. I always knew that I had the same birthday as Jimi Hendrix and Bruce Lee, and now I've just found out I've got the same birthday as Tommy Robinson. It kind of feels a bit tainted, I'll be honest with you. Tommy Robinson is a far-right media personality known for hating and opposing Muslims. He's also a former member of the far-right British National Party, BNP, which should not be mistaken for the French bank also called the BNP, who, as far as I'm aware, don't have any racist policies. Tommy Robinson is a former leader of the far-right English Defence League, EDL, but has since left, and he tried to found a far-right movement called Pegida UK, which I think is based on a German group, which was an anti-Islamic group. Although it flopped, and Tommy Robinson calls himself a journalist, but that's a bit contentious, more on that later. Tommy Robinson has been convicted in the UK for fraud, for stalking, for assault, for using someone else's passport, for using threatening behaviour, and for contempt of court, and I'm going to get into some of those later. Just wanted to say, if you like your true crime with a twist of psychiatry, then this channel, A Psych for Sore Minds, is for you. So why am I talking about Tommy Robinson now? Well, he was in the news very recently because he shared a video in early April. I think it was the first weekend in April 2022. And he said that he was detained in Mexico when he visited the country on holiday. And he said that he was detained in Cancun airport where he'd been there with his children. And he said, and I quote, "I'm being deported as a matter of national security." Robinson says in the video for TikTok that he claimed to have done nothing but criticise Islam, and he basically said that his political views had got him arrested.
I've landed at Cancun airport with my 3 children. I've been arrested. I've been separated from my kids, and now I'm being deported as a matter of national security. You speak about Islam, that's all I've done. Ask yourself what I've done. What are my convictions? What have I actually done? What have I done? Spoke about Islam, criticised Islam. I've been separated from my 3 kids. My mates here, I travelled with my friend and his children, so he's got my children. I've been put up, now I'm being deported from Mexico. Like, what the is going on? I'm a journalist who reports on serious issues in the UK. I can't rent a house, I can't open a bank account. Can't travel from Mexico.
But actually, he was being a little miserly with the truth, let's put it that way. What actually happened was that Tommy Robinson failed to appear for a High Court meeting, and he was about to be questioned about his finances in that meeting after he lost a libel case. So just to get into that case a little bit, in July 2021, he lost this libel case brought against him by 𝐒𝐿𝐷, who is now 18, and this is all related to an incident that happened last year. So this guy, Jamal, had been filmed being attacked in his school in 2018. And after that, Tommy Robinson was sued after falsely claiming in Facebook videos that 𝐒𝐿𝐷 was, and I quote, "not innocent, and he violently attacked young English girls in his school." And that was incorrect. Stay classy, San Diego. So Tommy Robinson was ordered to pay £100,000 in libel damages, but he claimed he was bankrupt, which does seem like an odd situation for somebody to be in if they're going on holiday to Mexico. There was widespread suspicion that he had lied to declare bankruptcy and clear his debts, and he actually had millions of pounds of assets hidden away. And there's this website called Hope Not Hate that has indicated that Robinson might have up to £3 million worth of assets. Okay, now let's look at some of Tommy Robinson's, I was going to say dishonesties. Let's put it in a nice way than that. Inconsistencies. So firstly, his name. Stephen Yaxley was what he was born as. Then he double-barreled it to Yaxley Lennon, I think after his mother got married. And he's also used the name Stephen Lennon in the past. He's used the name Paul Harris in the past. These all sound like Beatles to me. I don't know why. And then when he formed the far-right United People of Luton in 2009, Robinson was using the name Wayne King, which is actually quite funny. I'm not sure if it's an intentional joke. If it was, props to you, Tommy. In the past, he's also used the alias Mickey King, although I think he's missed a trick. I think he should call himself Michael Hunt. I'll give you a couple of minutes to catch up and see if you get that joke. So it was when the alias Tommy Robinson was first used when he was part of a far-right violent football gang called the Casual United. It's pretty good branding there. I think it's pretty clear what they're all about. So Tommy Robinson tried to enter the US illegally after being refused a visa in 2013, and he used another name, which was Andrew McMaster, who was a real-life associate of his, and this led to another fraud conviction. So to me, Tommy Robinson has changed his names more time than P. Diddy. I mean, Puffy, who is a rapper who I think is missed a call because he should have called himself Cocoa Puff. Another untruth is that Tommy Robinson claims that he was radicalized in response to paedophiles, and he said that what happened there was grooming and abuse of a female cousin by an Asian paedophile gang, and this is what motivated him to kind of fight against Islam and for the rights of white people. However, when he was pressed about this in the Huffington Post, he didn't say it was his cousin, he said it was his cousin's cousin. His cousins? His cousin's cousins? His cousin's cousins? Tommy Robinson also claimed that Muslim anti-British demonstration happened in his hometown against some soldiers, against anti-British army demonstration, and that he thought this was really disrespectful, which I completely agree with, I think it is, and this drove him to the far right. However, this event occurred in 2009 and Robinson had joined the BNP 5 years before, so it doesn't quite match up. It's telling little porcupines. Robinson also told a BBC film crew that he lived in a particular part of Luton where Islamic fanatics lived and that he feared for his safety. But it actually turned out that in reality he lived in a place called Wilstead, which is a relatively posh, leafy village on the outskirts of Bedford. Other areas where he's, how do I put this nicely, blurred the lines of honesty is that Tommy Robinson claims he's a campaigner against paedophiles, but Tommy Robinson hasn't personally exposed a single paedophile grooming gang. He's merely jumped on the bandwagon of existing other court cases. And in fact, you could even argue that his actions almost allowed sex offenders to walk free, because his contempt of court stunt not only got him jailed for 9 months, but it also almost interfered with the trial of a sexual grooming gang, and this all happened in Leeds Crown Court in May 2018. So what happened is there were reporting restrictions, so no publication with any details were allowed, and the courts had said this until a series of linked trials had finished, which involved 29 defendants. But Tommy Robinson completely ignored this, and he put out a Facebook Live video of the defendants in the trial, and he encouraged vigilante action. He actually asked for protests, and he broadcast this footage from outside the court on the 25th of May 2018. And this is all happening while the jury in the second trial were considering the verdict. So the video that he put out lasted an hour and a half, and it was viewed 250,000 times as it was being live streamed onto Facebook. Now, I might detest his racist ideology and his hate mongering, but I've got to say I'm impressed with his viewing numbers. Outside the court, Tommy Robinson's supporters were pelting bottles and cans at police, Stay Classy San Diego, and they verbally abused and physically intimidated a number of journalists. At his sentence hearing for this contempt of court, Tommy Robinson admitted that his live stream could have stopped the trial of these alleged groomers, and that would have actually prevented justice for the victims, and that he admitted that he breached his suspended sentence. So Tommy Robinson was imprisoned in HMP Hull, and his supporters claim that he was relocated to HMP Leicestershire, and that this was done intentionally. So Alex Jones, who is an American far-right radio show host and prominent conspiracy theorist, and he's also somebody who does a lot of collaborations with Tommy Robinson, he claimed HMP Leicester had 71% Muslim inmates as opposed to HMP Hull, which was only 2%. So he's basically saying that the authorities intentionally transferred Tommy Robinson to a place which would be a lot more Muslim prisoners, where he would be kind of targeted and picked on. However, neither of these claims is true. According to his own lawyer, HMP Hull is 7% Muslim and HMP Leicester is 14% Muslim. To be fair, I don't want to be too judgmental. Maybe Alex Jones is not a fascist propaganda fearmonger. Maybe he's just shit at maths. Okay, so another example of hypocrisy. Robinson and his supporters claim to support women and children subjected to rape, sexual assault and exploitation. However, there was an EDL, English Defence League member called Peter Gillett, who was sentenced in 2018 to 18 years for child sex offences, and another member called Lee McMillan, who was jailed for offences against a 10-year-old. And Robinson didn't speak out about any of this, didn't mention it, didn't condemn, managed to keep his mouth shut. Further, in 2012, Robinson tweeted a 15-year-old girl saying that she was, and I quote, pretty fit for a Muslim, and made no comment when she revealed her age. Stay classy, San Diego. Okay, moving on. Tommy Robinson also claims that he's a defender of free speech, and he calls himself a journalist. However, outside the Old Bailey, on one occasion, he described the media as enemies of the people, while his supporters were shouting scum at journalists. So this kind of reminds me of the narrative of fake news pushed by my favourite, bright orange, former president with small pussy-grabbing hands. Tommy Robinson has also harassed journalists who have exercised their free speech. He's turned up at their homes and at their workplaces. In an online video, he once warned, and I quote, "If you're a journalist and you think your office or your home is a safe space, it is not." Dun dun dun. I might have added the dun dun dun. Other tiffs, should we say, with the strong arm of the law in Tommy Robinson's history, there's quite a lot of them. 2005, in April, he was convicted of assaulting an off-duty police officer. In June 2011, he was arrested in connection with a brawl at an EDL demonstration. And then following month, he was sentenced to 12 months of community rehabilitation for his frontline role in a fight between rival football gangs. 2012, May, the sexual harassment of a minor, already mentioned that. October 2012, arrested on suspicion of possessing a false passport, already mentioned that. November 2013, convicted of mortgage fraud, and Tommy Robinson was sentenced in January 2014 to 18 months imprisonment. So what had happened is he obtained mortgages under false pretenses, and he gained about £160,000 over a period of 6 months, reportedly. Then in 2017, he was arrested for contempt of court. I've already mentioned that incident. Just to add to that, the judge at length during the trial explained to Tommy Robinson that this was not an issue of free speech. He said, and I quote, "This contempt hearing is not about free speech. This is not about freedom of the press. This is not about legitimate journalism." So I think the point that the judge was trying to make was that a legitimate journalist would not have done that, would not have broadcasted or released information or tried to taint the public's views because of the strict liability rule. And there'd be no defence to use the publication in terms of the pejorative language that Tommy Robinson used, because this would prejudge the case. Then in March 2018, Tommy Robinson was banned from Twitter for breaking their hateful conduct policy. He's got a string of intimidating his critics. So in March 2019, one night at 11 p.m, Tommy Robinson went to the home of a man called Mike Stuckbury, who was a journalist who had criticised him, and Tommy Robinson rocked up with his crew, violently banged on the doors and the windows of the property, didn't get a response, went off, 5 a.m, came back and repeated the action. On the 17th of January 2021, he found a new target. So there was an independent newspaper Home Affairs correspondent named Lizzie Dearden, and she was investigating allegations that Tommy Robinson had misused money from his supporters. And then Robinson and a bunch of his thugs went to a house and tried to gain entry into a house. They got refused entry, obviously, so he sat in his car and repeatedly tooted the horn, beep, beep, and shouted, "There's a paedophile living in this building." Shouted this over and over again, even though it wasn't true. In February 2019, Tommy Robinson was permanently banned from Facebook and Instagram for repeatedly breaking their policies on hate speech. And after this was followed by comparisons by his faithful supporters of him being controlled, and he was compared, the state controlling him was being compared to Nazi Germany and George Orwell's 1984. So yeah, right-wing people calling the state Nazis is pretty ironic. That's like the pot calling the kettle black, or the pot calling the kettle white and proud. Okay, so that's a lot about his background. Now let's go into his personality traits. Pay attention, nerds, here comes the science. Before I do that, let me introduce you to this YouTube channel. As I said before, my name is Dr. 𝐂𝐿𝐻 Das. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist. I assess mentally disordered offenders in courts and in prisons and in secure psychiatric units. I also give evidence formally as an expert witness in psychiatric trials. You can call me the ominous 𝐂𝐿𝐻. I'm your favourite, unless you're Tommy Robinson, Asian, London-based gold-toothed forensic psychiatrist on YouTube, at least in your top 3. This channel offers a smorgasbord of videos related to true crime and offending. So I've recently done a video on the Psychoanalysis of Putin. I've done one on Jimmy Savile and his personality traits and how his circumstances allowed him to continue his abuse without being challenged. If you like true crime, I've done a case on Katherine, who was the first female Australian to have a full life sentence because she decapitated her own husband. I kid you not. She cooked his head and body parts and tried to feed them to his kids. Gotta go check out that case. I've done videos on broader topics such as the psychology behind pathological lying. So if you like your true crime, the trusted psychiatry, go and check out my other videos. I implore you to subscribe because not only does it help me out immeasurably, but if you don't, if you don't subscribe, then I guarantee that you're going to step in some dog doo-doo later on today. Okay, let's get back to the video. So, Tommy Robinson's personality traits. To me, the thing that stands out the most is his attempts to kind of spin his situation. So the biggest example of this is, as I said before, he nearly derailed the trial of a sex gang and he almost messed it up and was done with contempt of court, but he tried to push the narrative that it was all about the establishment being out to get him intentionally, and they were picking on him more than other journalists in order to protect these gangs that commit sexual assaults. So he's really trying to push this persecuted persona, insisting he's being treated more harshly than other journalists, although arguably it's arguable whether you call him a journalist as opposed to a far-right agitator. I would also say that Tommy Robinson and his people around him, his crew, are very good at using this trial to perpetuate their anti-establishment image, so they can push the anti-establishment image. They can push their own anti-Islamic agenda. Whew, like a tongue twister, that. The other thing I'd say is that Tommy Robinson's former aide, his own aide, Lucy Brown, who was sacked by him, said that he had no actual genuine political interest and that his career is a get-rich-quick scheme, and that people's outrage are being stoked by him and then monetized, and she used those words. So I guess the point she's trying to make is that this is all about him gaining popularity and trying to get support, and he does. He has various crowdfunding, I don't know if they're internet pages, but certainly schemes, and he's made lots of money from them. So, next question, is Tommy Robinson a pathological liar? I think the answer is no, because pathological liars don't do it for an understandable reason. It's actually the process of lying that they get some sort of hard to understand pleasure from, whereas Tommy Robinson does it for quite cunning and clever purposes, I think. So I don't think he's a pathological liar. If you're interested in pathological lying, I've actually done another video about that specifically. Always be plugging. Okay, next question, which I think is interesting. Is Tommy Robinson charismatic? There's a reason I'm asking that, because it relates to other sort of diagnoses such as psychopathy. If I'm being completely objective here, so taking all the emotion out to answer that question, I think there's arguments on both sides. Is he charismatic? He certainly has the ability to harness the emotions of those around him and garner support very quickly, and you have to be charismatic to do that. But then arguably you could say that his supporters are like embers of fire and Tommy Robinson is the lighter fluid, so they're kind of, you could say that they're racist thugs who are kind of primed to be stoked and to have their hornet's nest poked. I'm not saying that because I quite like the number of teeth I have, thank you, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. However, you could also argue very fairly that they come from a background of deprivation and poverty, they're frustrated with their socio-economic disadvantages, and they see immigrants as a threat to their livelihood. Also, still talking about Tommy Robinson being charismatic, you have to admit that he's also reviled and ridiculed. He's very much a polarizing character. He's kind of like Marmite, although I don't think he'd want to be associated with anything brown, so Mom White. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. In fact, let me know what you think about Marmite and Tommy Robinson in the comment section below. So to answer my question, my objective analysis, I do think he's charismatic, but only in a very specific audience and very specific situations and very specific boundaries. Okay, so let's conclude this video by asking the question, who is Tommy Robinson? I think at best he is a patriotic warrior standing up for his people and his race. He's good at courting controversy, he's good at getting attention for some quite serious issues, and he's good at using all of the narrative to forward his cause. Plus he's got a cool haircut. And at worst, Tommy Robinson is a racist, xenophobic, manipulative and lying thug with a long history of offending and violence, also with a cool haircut. Let me know what you think about Tommy Robinson and his hair in the comment section below. Okay, here's a good question. Is Tommy Robinson a narcissist? I think it's mixed. I think he does have some elements of narcissism, not elephants, but not all of them. So for example, he's got a grandiose sense of self-importance, which is kind of the core of being a narcissist. He seems to be preoccupied with fantasies of success, and he pushes his own power and brilliance, and he seems to believe that he's special and unique, and he has a need for excessive admiration, and he does have a sense of entitlement, not just for him, but for his people. And he has interpersonal exploitative behaviour. So he's got, actually, to be fair, a lot of the main hallmarks of a narcissist. But narcissists lack empathy, and I think you can argue that Tommy Robinson does have empathy for his supporters, and he believes that impoverished areas like Luton are being over-Islamified and he's doing something about it. But he has a lack of empathy for other people, for brown people basically. Another thing is that envy seems to be a core of narcissism, and as far as I'm aware, Tommy Robinson doesn't really have that as a personality trait. He's not a jealous or envious person in general. That's what I think. Let me know what you think. Okay, so next question, is Tommy Robinson a psychopath? So I've talked about psychopaths quite a lot on my channel. I've actually worked with psychopaths, so I've rehabilitated them, I've assessed them, I've diagnosed them formally for court reports, etc. Very briefly, a definition of a psychopath is not necessarily about violence, it's about charm and manipulation, lacking empathy, and doing whatever it takes to get the best out of your situation and kind of throwing other people under the bus to get your way. So I think Tommy Robinson definitely does have some of the main features. So he's got this glib and superficial charm, although as I said, the charm is kind of a mixed bag. He's certainly grandiose, which relates to narcissism, so he's got a high estimation of himself. He does seem to be a cunning and manipulative and regular liar. He does seem to show a lack of remorse or guilt, a lack of empathy. He does have poor behavioural controls. He does seem impulsive. He does seem irresponsible. All of those things that I talked about all the time. He broke the law from tweeting underage girls. He does display criminal versatility. I think that's fair, from fraud to violence to kind of contempt of court to all these legal issues to stoking riots. So yeah, lots of different types of crimes, which is typical for a psychopath. Does he have a parasitic lifestyle? If the rumours are to be believed, then he has been living off money from his supporters, so I think he would tick that box. Revocation of conditional release. This is often a forgotten about feature of a psychopath. So that's when somebody doesn't learn from their mistakes. So if they're on probation, for etc., etc. So yeah, Tommy Robinson, I think, does have some of that. The very fact that he went on holiday to Mexico whilst he was on bail and didn't attend court shows that he has little disregard for the law and doesn't learn from his mistakes. So I think he hits most of the traits of being a psychopath. However, there's some that he doesn't. So he's not sexually promiscuous, as far as I know. He's a good family man. He doesn't lack realistic long-term goals. A couple of things he's done have flopped, and certainly some things he's done have not been popular, but he always seems to have some sort of plan or goal. So those are a couple of features where he doesn't seem to have psychopathy. Obviously, I can't diagnose him definitively without assessing him in person, but from the information available, I'd say he's certainly close to the threshold. I'd probably say that he just tips over being a psychopath. So, in conclusion, what do we learn from this episode? Let's keep it moving. I ain't got no time for shucking and jiving. We learned that Tommy Robinson is a master of spin. We learned that he likes to portray himself as a victim and that what he says is not always true, and he does tell a little porcupines to try and make it look as if he's being persecuted. We learned a little about his personality traits and historical behaviour, and we argued about whether he's charismatic or not. I talked about whether he's a narcissist, whether he's a psychopath, and I think it's fair to say that the picture is complicated and mixed. Let's put it that way. Okay, I'm about to finish. I want you guys to remember to stay 𝐂𝐿𝐿. I'm going to CrimeCon in June, and on the 11th and 12th of June, I believe. If you want to come and watch me give a talk about some of the most shocking cases I've seen in my career as a forensic psychiatrist, come along, use the code PSYCH. Hopefully the details should be in the link below, and you'll get 10% off your ticket because I got your back. Buy my book. It talks about lots of different interesting aspects of being a forensic psychiatrist. Watch my videos. Please get your friends to subscribe because I am a shallow man and I need reassurances to help repair my shattered ego. All right, that's enough from me. Stay 𝐂𝐿𝐿 and do not forget, I love you.